Hello and welcome back to Tarotzahara. Guess who I am? Yep, still Tina Zahara. Not gonna change. Anyways, hi. This time we are going to finish the majors. Yay, we're almost done. So let's get out our notebooks and everything and let's get going on the majors. Starting with the sun. See how we've got the two little kids. Most decks, you can see the wall behind them though, but most decks show a child like on a horse, like on the other side of a wall, like, and it's a really cheery, sunny sort of kid-like card. It is card number 19, numerical value of 200, because now we're going 100, 200, 300, 400. So that's numerical value of 200. Astrological sign is Leo, duh, and it's ruled by the sun, duh. Okay, this doesn't really have that much. These last three aren't really that sort of body part kind of thing. Although in this case, if it was a body part, it would be like the face and the heart, because the heart being Leo. Okay, so the sun is the card of solar energy, of happiness, of activity. This is the moment when the Fool finally emerges from the underworld. He is now officially out in the daylight, your largest luminary, the sun. He has learned what he needs to know to stand in the full light of day and begin to accept the external rewards for all of the work that he's done, spiritually, etc. And so this is pretty much a card of love, of family and children. It also represents freedom from restrictions. When you see it traditionally, with the kid on the other side of the wall, the sort of the implication is that the child was behind the wall, but now he's gotten over the wall. And now he's free from the limits that the wall imposed. And he is also free from what previously confined the Fool. There is a level of fatherhood that goes with the sun, but it's a higher form of fatherhood than the Emperor. And so, prophetically speaking, we've got the external rewards. So we've got fatherhood, paternity, virility, creativity. All these things belong to the sun. Also, freedom, success, marriage, family, love, all the external manifestations of the work that the Fool has done. This is very often a significator for a Leo. Some of the cards are often significators, and some just almost never are. So this one is definitely often a significator. And when you reverse the sun, it appears to indicate some of the upright position, but the person may not trust the reality of their situation. It could imply that while their external life flourishes, internally, they're not sure, they don't trust it. And so there's still some active work that needs to be done internally, but the externals are at least partially there, maybe not fully and completely there. But the sun is it's a pretty straightforward card. There's not a lot to it other than it just being a really happy card and, you know, the sunny card, right? So that's the sun. Now, Judgment gets tricky. Judgment is card number 20, numerical value of 300. Planetary associations would be Jupiter and Pluto. And it is generally not a significator, but if it were, it would probably be a Scorpio. And as far as body parts, it would probably be reproductive organs or digestive organs. Judgment, okay. If you look at the moon, I brought a different moon out. I wish I had a straight Rider-Waite, which I don't. But what you see is you see these two characters chained to the sort of pedestal that the devil is on. And in theory, the chains are loose. They could actually pull them off and walk away, but they're so caught up in all this, they just don't realize that they can get away from it. But this couple is the same couple that you also see in the Lovers card and in this card. Okay, they're all three the same, but it's different manifestations of the couple. The Lovers would be, it's sort of the initiation, when the relationship starts, when they actually connect with each other. The Devil would be when you sort of see the more negative aspects of two people who are very much bound to each other. And then the Judgment card would be more of the more satisfying, fulfilling, internal kind of reaction to a relationship, and that would be a romantic relationship. It is the card of resurrection. If you look at it, most of these, does this one have it? No. Most of the Judgment cards show Gabriel blowing his horn, and you see these two characters and a child rising up out of a coffin. It's not that visible. It's not really that obvious in this particular deck. And what you've got is you've got the man and the woman. We're not going to get into the whole gay and lesbian thing that, that falls under this too. But the man and the woman come together and they've created a third party. And the third party is the Judgment. And they're all rising up. It is the after, the post-death resurrection, right? Resurrection, duh. This is, just like the sun was the external reward for everything that the Fool went through, the Judgment card is the internal reward. And very often, it's a strange thing about the Judgment card. Very often, you know how some days you look in the mirror and you're like, other days you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, it's not that bad today. Like, I look kind of okay today, right? You can almost see when people are running Judgment energy. Like, you can almost see that they look better. Their skin's clearer. Their eyes are brighter. Just, sort of intangible kind of things. Because it's like that inner glow, that inner happiness, the inner satisfaction, right? And so it's pretty much spiritual reward that you're looking at. And it's a renewal of spirit. This is where sort of the self and the high self of the Fool come together, mate, and create this new entity, right? It's sort of like when my mother used to do charts, right? For a couple, she'd say, well, you have to do chart A and chart B. Let's call them, just for the sake of argument, man and woman, right? You have to do his chart, you have to do her chart, and then you have to do a separate chart of the relationship itself. That's kind of like the third party here in the Judgment card. So even though the Judgment card is a number 300, I kind of count it as a 3 as well. Even though 303, right? But because you've got 3 characters on one card, right? And so, any connection to Judgment, as we understand the word, would be karmic. This would be like the point of graduation from a karmic. Let's say you're in some really karmic relationship. People will come to me and they'll go, I met my soulmate. It's like, oh, here we go, right? Now, I met my soulmate. It's so karmic. And I'm like, not all karma is good karma, right? Some of it's bad, right? And this would be sort of when you sort of break free of the karma of a relationship and begin to just sort of restart the relationship or start the relationship without all that karmic baggage along with you, right? And so this is sort of a beginning point in a way, because you're starting with a clean slate again. But it's not so much, it's not like when you meet someone, it won't really show as the Judgment card. That would be more like the Fool, the Magician, the Lovers. There are a lot of other ways that you would see somebody when you meet somebody new, or some of the minors. With the Judgment card, it could be, you know, you meet someone and it's you feel a lot of karma in the relationship. That would be sort of a good karmic relationship then. So prophetically, you've got like real justice that goes with this, renewal, resurrection, birth. It's certainly a card of birth, because of course it's Scorpio. You know, Scorpio's sex, birth, death, and rebirth, right? It would be spiritual freedom and enlightenment. It could be religious situations, and if it does show it, if it is coming in to show a relationship, that relationship would be advantageous to the person who is getting the reading, whether that's you or you're reading for somebody else. And then when you reverse it, it's like lawsuits that end for the betterment of the other guy, like lawsuits that you don't necessarily win. Initiation of karma, which, ooh, be careful. Again, some karma is great karma, some karma not so much. Large-scale injustice, entrapment, restriction, or the end of relationships or situations prematurely. Like there was a karmic situation here, and you two came together to play out some sort of karma with each other, except that somebody just bailed out on the relationship before that karma was resolved. So it's considered like a premature ending. Decision-making can come in as a reverse Judgment card. The Judgment card reversed indicates the need to go back and reopen an issue that has been closed unsatisfactorily, which is perfect for Mercury retrograde periods, or really any planet when it goes retrograde. Because retrograde is, you know, is going backwards, right? You're going back. And so, you know, while you're not supposed to sign contracts, for example, when Mercury is retrograde, if you negotiate an agreement before it got put on hold, and then starts back up when Mercury is retrograde and you have to sign it then, that's fine, because you're going back to something that already, right? So you would have this sort of premature ending of a karmic situation. And so you need to go back and restart everything, reopen the issue, sort of rethink your whole MO, your whole goal in the situation. And it could, if you don't if you don't heed this sort of warning, you're going to find blockages in other parts of your life, or the person's life that's being read for. So you want to really sort of watch that one. It's a really good card. I mean, it's rarely really bad. Like every once in a while it is. But for the most part, it's a pretty good card. You just got to watch out for those sticky karmic entanglements, which, like I said, aren't always good. Okay, and this is the last major. This is the World card, okay? They've got the 4 elements represented on the 4 corners, right? And you've got the little dancer. Technically, the dancer in the middle is supposed to have the top half of a woman and the bottom half of a man. But, you know, these artists aren't like, you know, whatever. They're not Picasso, I mean, Rembrandt. So, you know, you can't really tell that. But that is what that's supposed to be. This is supposed to be a gender-neutral card. In that it's not male or female, it's kind of both. This is card number 21, numerical value of 400. Planetary associations would be Saturn and Jupiter working together. And again, not much of a significator, but if it would be Sag or Capricorn. And it rules kind of the navel and the legs. Because even though you can't see the navel on this character, the character is still considered naked, right? And we've discussed naked and the whole truth thing that goes along with naked. Okay, I like to think of the World card as the all-encompassing dance of life. It's when you get the internal reward of the Judgment card, the external reward of the Sun card, both. You get it all. You get the big picture. And like, I also see the laurel wreath here, around here. Laurel wreaths in tarot are generally, always indicate like some sort of victory. And the laurel wreath in this case, I always see as kind of a birth canal, right? Because something is emerging from there. This card promises the internal and external rewards that the universe can bestow on you. It is a card of completion, successful completion of a difficult task or a period or a relationship. You have to understand, if you understand life as a series of cycles, because it's always a series of cycles, then the world card or the universe, depending on what you want to call it, can either be a beginning or an ending, or sort of both, right? That's why it's sort of Saturn, which restricts, and Jupiter, which expands. It's kind of both. But this is the highest card in the deck. It is very much like the Death card. It behaves very much like the Death card, but it's a much higher card, and it's a much happier card than the Death card. And this is, this is the card you want. This is the best card in the deck. It'll make you the happiest. So prophetically, it would be completion, success, reward, harmony, joy, fulfillment, satisfaction, all these things. It could also be a literal change of residence. But if or international travel belongs to the world also. But if it was an actual move, it would be more like immigration rather than moving from Texas to Kentucky, whatever, right? Okay. And this card can represent a man or a woman. And reversed, it doesn't have that nice clean cut to it. The nice clean cut. This is before and this is after. It's mushy. It's muddy. And so it's like fear of change or permanence or lack of vision and motion, stagnation, stubbornness. Oh my God, stubbornness. And this can represent a man or a woman, and it could be someone who manipulates, like uses their sexuality or their beauty, whatever, to manipulate. So it's not a bad card per se. There's almost nothing you can do to make this card bad, but it is sort of it's like sort of a better iteration of the Death card. And this makes the end of the majors. But before we get into the minors, I promised you guys I would do this quickly, and I'm going to do it very quickly, so I hope you have your notes, your notebooks ready to take notes. When we get into the minors, you kind of have to understand the 4 elements and the astrological signs just at a really basic level. And so I'm going to blow through it really fast so that I don't bore you guys to death. Maybe some of you will be interested in it, but some of you won't. But we got to go through it. So, okay, the first sign in the zodiac is Aries. Aries is a fire sign. It is ruled by Mars, co-ruled by Pluto. And Aries is the sort of me first. Aries is about the self. Aries is like a child, new souls, that kind of thing. Aries can be a lot of fun. They can be a lot of fun. They can get really silly and goofy and be a lot of fun, but don't fight with them, because Aries fights to win. And that when you really care about someone and you fight with them and they're fighting to win, it can get pretty ugly. So you really kind of want to, you know, hedge your bets. It's always better to walk out and say, we're going to agree to disagree, than it is to really engage in battle with them. It just doesn't end well. Generally speaking, it is fire, and it is Cardinal. And the second sign, which rules the, Aries rules the first house, first sign. Second house, second sign, Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. It is ruled by Venus. And Taurus is fixed. It's fixed earth. Taurus can be so delightful. They can be very easy and very charming, and their homes are so comfortable, and they always have soft sweaters, and there's this whole comfort thing about Taurus that's lovely. They are, however, also very stubborn like no other sign is stubborn like Taurus. And they will try and keep the peace, which is also a very nice trait in them. They will try and keep the peace, but when they're mad, they're really ugly when they're mad. It's very ugly. You don't want to go there. Like, it's just not worth it. They kind of need their freedom. They tend to not be jealous or possessive or anything like that. Which is, again, I'm making generalizations about the signs, and there's so much more that goes into a person than just their sun sign. So, sometimes you'll see, if someone has an afflicted sun, you'll see that in certain ways they behave like their opposite, more like their opposite than their own sign, because their sun is afflicted, But that's deeper into astrology than we're going to go. Okay. Third sign is Gemini, third house. Gemini is air, it's mutable, and it's the sign of the twins, right? Roses are red, violets are blue, I'm schizophrenic, and so am I. Sorry, I can't help it. I always say that. I love Geminis. Don't get me wrong. I love Geminis. But they do tend to talk out of both sides of their face. And they do tend to always take the counterpoint. And they must have their alternatives. They can be very bright. They're ruled by Mercury. And Mercury is a very analytical planet. And when they get clarity, their clarity is like clear, like really clear, like only Virgo and Gemini get that kind of clarity. And so you kind of have to watch their moods. You got to watch what they do, not as much what they say, because they will sometimes just, blurt out something that just doesn't even make sense. Because you know that what they're saying isn't true, and they're not meaning to lie to you. They're just, their alter ego is just needing to talk or something. I don't know what that is. Okay. And they are mutable air. And then fourth house, fourth sign would be Cancer. Cancer is water, and Cancer is Cardinal. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and it very much has associations with the mother. Like, Cancer people generally either think their mothers walk on water or they hate their mothers. Like, there's kind of no in between with Cancer and the mother. They make fabulous, the women generally make very good mothers. They are a little bit secretive. They can get very silly and fun, and they tend to keep their own counsel. Once they attach in a relationship, they don't detach that easily. it's a very painful situation to watch a Cancer detaching from a relationship. It's very painful. And sometimes they just don't detach well at all. I had a close friend, she has since passed, who she would break up relationships for good reasons, although generally later than she should, because she was so security, security in Cancer is such a big thing. But she never really got them out of her life. They always kind of stayed in her life in some way. And that's pretty Cancer. Cancer men are fabulous after 40, generally, and not so much before 40. They've got a lot to learn before 40. I really like Cancers. We tend to part ways over the secretiveness. I don't like secretiveness in a person, but that's just the Cancer, and that's the way they do things. And they tend to they walk like a crab. They walk side to side, but all the while they're walking side to side, they are making forward motion. Like they're moving ahead. It's just they're expending all this energy going side to side like a crab. Okay. Cancer. And the next one would be, 5th house would be Leo, ruled by the sun. That is fixed fire. Leos can be so generous and so sunny and bright and cheery and lovely to be around. They tend to be very loyal. You got to watch the ego with Leos. If you are a Leo, don't let your ego run the show. It just doesn't end well. And if you're dealing with a Leo, you're going to have to do service to their ego. That's just kind of part of the process with Leos. But generally, they're very nice people. When their tempers flare, they flare very quickly and whatever. But they're generally not that bad. When they get mad, they growl and they huff and they puff, but they don't generally take a swipe that often, to actually do something actually really mean. Okay, fixed fire, Leo. Okay, 6th house would be Virgo, ruled by Mercury, and it is mutable earth is Virgo. Virgo is the sort of virgin of the zodiac. Their color is like white, right? And Virgo is very analytical, very analytical. They're not really emotional like a Cancer. Cancers get really emotional. Virgos don't generally get that emotional, but when they do, it's more of a head trip that you'll see them spin out on some kind of weird head trip about something. But their clarity, when they're clear, they're really clear, and when they're not, there could be some real convoluted stuff that goes on with that, just wheel spinning. And boy, the poor things, when they get stressed out, they barf. It's just sad to watch. This is really sad to watch. They can be very fun, and they can be very pleasant and knowledgeable and interesting people. Virgos in relationships will work like nobody else to make that relationship work. They will work really hard. But the men, specifically only to the men, they either strive to be the perfect husband, boyfriend, whatever, or like my mother used to say, nobody owns a Virgo man. They never fully commit. They're not 100% all in. And it's very frustrating being on that end of, Virgo in that kind of position. Okay, Virgo, 6th, 7th house would be Libra. Libra is cardinal air, and they're ruled by the planet Venus as well. And Libra strives, they say Libra strives for balance, for justice, for fairness. I know that my Mercury is in Libra because, girl, if I didn't have my Mercury in Libra, I would not be able to work as a psychic because I would be just so intense and difficult. It would be impossible to deal with me. So my Mercury in Virgo is in Libra is my saving grace. And so Libras tend to want things peaceful, quiet, wants everyone to get along, all this stuff. They're good mediators. But don't ask them to make a decision. Do not, unless you're really mad at them, do not ask them what they want for dinner because you're going to torture them. That they just don't make decisions. Well, in general terms, there are exceptions to the rule, obviously, but decision making is not their strong suit. Their strong suit is relationships and friendships and partnerships. That's what they really excel in. And when you hold hands, when you hold hands with a Libra, no one else feels like that. You feel like you're the only person on earth and that the two of you are just going to skip off into the sunset forever and be happy and joyful and kids forever. It's really sweet. It's very sweet. Okay. After Libra is, of course, the best sign of the zodiac, Scorpio. Scorpio is the 8th sign, rules the 8th house. We are fixed fixed water. Let me go back to Libra for a second. Libra is opposite Aries. You want to know the opposite signs because if somebody is a Libra and they're really argumentative or sort of, war-loving creatures, then you know that they're an afflicted Libra because they're behaving more like Aries, right? And so Scorpio is fixed water, 8th house, ruled by Pluto, co-ruled by Mars. Scorpio rules birth, sex, death, rebirth, and other people's money. We are very intense. Very intense. We don't do we don't do wishy-washy. There's just no point. I don't spend much time on anything that I'm wishy-washy about because it's just a waste of my energy. We also tend to be very loyal. We also tend to be very stubborn. Being on the wrong side of a Scorpio is not good because we remember forever. We may forgive, we may not, but we won't ever forget. And, if you really piss off a Scorpio and there's nothing that Scorpio can do about it in the moment, we'll wait forever. And when we see our moment, we're going to take it and we're going to get back at you. It's not the pretty side of the Scorpio. The best side of the Scorpio is the loyalty and the intensity and the reliability. Scorpio is opposite Taurus, and both Scorpio and Taurus tend to be very reliable. Okay. And then the next would be 9th house, which would be Sagittarius, which is mutable fire. Yeah, mutable fire. And Sag is opposite Gemini. And Sag is like lucky. Like Sages are lucky. And sometimes they don't outwardly seem lucky. There's like a gnat in here that's driving me crazy. So if you see me like swatting at something, if they don't seem outwardly lucky, although they can be outwardly very lucky, but if they don't seem outwardly lucky, they'll get lucky. Their luck will be wasted in stupid ways. Like my grandmother was a Sagittarius, and she was like famous for setting something down like this on the edge of something where there's no way that should be able to stay, but it does. And you couldn't do it twice if you meant to. Just weird lucky things that happen to Sagittarius. Sagittarians, they've got that fire, they've got that enthusiasm. They're so enthusiastic, they get all fired up and they're good to go, but they kind of are that way, like when they're fighting with you too, they'll flare up and they'll get all, blah, 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 but they don't mean a thing by it. They don't have teeth and they don't really want to hurt anybody because they're just generally sweet people. They're very non-committal. It's very hard to get a Sag to marry. It's just hard. Even if they want to marry the person, they, you know, they still will freak out and carry on, even though it's exactly what they want. They're still going to freak out. It's just kind of the nature of the Sag beast. But they tend to be, they also tend to be pretty good with money. Like, they can do miraculous stuff with money. They can make a penny stretch into a dollar like nobody else. Okay, 9th, 10th house would be Capricorn. Capricorn is cardinal, yeah, it's cardinal Earth. It is ruled by Saturn. The 10th house is like fatherhood, and Capricorn is the father of the zodiac, just like Cancer is the mother. They are opposites, Cap and Cancer. And Capricorns come across as kind of cold, kind of gruff, sometimes kind of even grumpy. But don't let them fool you. They're every bit the mushball cream puffs that Cancers are. They just won't let you see it unless you're really, really, really close to them. It's just kind of the way they are. They tend to be very pragmatic, very practical. You see Cancer and Capricorn together a lot because the Cancer excels in the emotional stuff and the Capricorn excels in the practical stuff, and together they make a good team when they work, you know, but opposites sometimes work really well and sometimes are bad, just bad. But I've always liked Capricorns, you know, they tend to be hardworking and, you know, just hardworking, responsible people. Sometimes you see a really irresponsible Capricorn, or a Capricorn that's like, you know, some like weird drug addict or something, but that's kind of the exception rather than the rule. You know, they tend to be like goats. They want, you know, they tend to be a little bit of social climbing, and they want to climb up the corporate ladder. They're climbers, you know, like goats. I attract Capricorns like nobody ever. I'm like the original goat herder. I know Capricorns inside out and backwards. But, you know, when you're dealing with a Capricorn, don't presume that you're ever going to see their soft side. Unless you're like seriously dating them or something like that, then yes, you'll see it at some point. But they tend to seem very unemotional, but don't believe it. You know, they're still, all of it's going click, 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 and they tend to be pretty slow in their processing, slow to commit, slow to take the next step in relationships and that kind of thing. But good solid mates, certainly, if you're looking at a mate. Okay, and then the 11th house would be Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. It is opposite Leo. It is fixed air. A lot of people think Aquarius is water because it's the water bearer, but it's air. And don't ask me why, that's just the way it is. Aquarius rules like revolution and change, and they don't like to be confined, and they don't like all the, like Capricorn loves all their traditions and stuff, and Aquarius, not at all. They tend to be much more free-spirited, you know, happy-go-lucky, like their other air signs. They tend to sort of slide across the top of things. You know, my mother used to call an Aquarian, that we knew, a family friend, a witless, a butterfly, and the Gemini was the witless grasshopper. The Achilles heel for the Aquarian is that they are pathologically afraid of being taken advantage of or snuck around on. That just freaks them out. That's just a big deal to them. But otherwise, they're like really easygoing. I think sometimes overly permissive. light and cheerful and generally very delightful to be around. Okay, and last but not least is Pisces. I love Pisces too. I'm such a water baby. Pisces is mutable water. It is opposite, what is that? I'm brain farting, hang on. It is opposite Pisces, Virgo. And Pisces is sort of a little bit from all the signs before, because it's the last sign, right? And it's got a little bit from Aries and a little bit from Taurus and a little bit from Gemini and blah, 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 blah. The only thing that really belongs to Pisces is martyrdom. Figure that one out. They tend to be very light. You know, they don't get heavily involved in things. I mean, every so often something will hit them, you know, sideways and they'll dig their heels in, but they're generally very easygoing and very pleasant and very just nice, you know, just nice, sweet people. And, you know, they're mutable, so they kind of, you know, morph into wherever they, you know, whoever, whatever the situation is, they tend to morph easily into, you know, they walk into a room and they just morph. But you got to watch out, because it does rule martyrdom, and they will totally sacrifice themselves for somebody else. And that's not, you don't really want them to do that if you care about them, you know, whatever. Like, you got to watch them for that. And they're very slow, very, 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 very slow. They will drive you crazy with their slowness, which doesn't mean that they walk slow, but like, if they say, oh, okay, I'll call you right back, that could be, you know, 2 weeks, like, you know, that kind of slow. But they're very, you know, they're very nice. But it's important that you understand, you know, fixed means stubborn. Fixed means this is who I am and that doesn't change. Fixed. And the fixed signs would be Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, right? And then cardinal means they want to be the leader. They want to go first. So the cardinal signs would be Aries, Libra, oh, I'm brain farting. Aries, Libra, and I just said it too, didn't I? Capricorn and Cancer. And then the mutable signs are, they're mutable. I mean, they mutate into different situations, you know? And so, you know, just like how you'll see like these crazy mood swings with a Gemini, you know, like, you know, they may come into work, you know, 12 consecutive work days with a big smile on their face, and then on the 13th day, who knows, they may just come in grumbly and grumpy, and if you say hi to them, they throw you a dirty look, like, you know, like, they mutate. And so they tend to not be the leaders in situations, you know, because they want to morph into something, you know, like Gemini wants to react. They want you to initiate so that then they can react to what you do. Whereas like Aries, which is cardinal, they want to be the one to make the first move on everything. Okay, so next class we start on the minors. We're already through the majors. And maybe I'll do another sample. I don't know. We'll either start with the minors or I'll do another sample spread because we need to cover that a few times. I hope you learned something. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, share, do whatever, comment. I promise I will respond back, and I hope you're enjoying this class so far and my weirdness. Thank you.